The Senate will come to order. I ask everyone present to please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In the absence of clergy, let us bow our heads in a moment of silent reflection or prayer. Reading of the Journal.
In Senate, Wednesday, March 8, 2023, Senate met pursuant to adjournment. The Journal of Tuesday, March 7, 2023 was read and approved. On motion, the Senate adjourned.
Without objection, the Journal stands approved as read. Presentation of petitions, messages from the Assembly, messages from the Governor, reports of standing committees, reports of select committees, communications and reports from state officers, motions and resolutions. Senator Gianaris.
Good morning, Madam President. I move to adopt the resolution calendar with the exception of Resolution 509.
All those in favor of adopting the resolution calendar with the exception of Resolution 509, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution calendar is adopted. Senator Gianaris.
Can we begin by taking up previously adopted Resolution 55 by Senator Tedesco, read its title, and recognize Senator Tedesco.
The Secretary will read.
Senate Resolution 55 by Senator Tedesco, congratulating the Waterford Half Moon girls soccer team and head coach Megan Reynolds upon the occasion of winning the New York State Class C Girls Soccer Championship. Senator
Tedesco, on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. Let me say I'm extremely proud to welcome yet another group of outstanding state champions from the 44th Senate District to the Chamber today. The Waterford Half Moon High School girls soccer team and head coach Megan Reynolds captured the New York State Class C Girls Soccer Championship with a 6-3 triumph over Sequot Valley on Sunday, November 13th, 2022 at Cortland High School. These are uncharted waters for the Fordians as they won their first New York State Championship while garnering a record of 40-2 over the course of the past 2 seasons. Prior to their success at the state level, the Fordians breezed through the Section 2 playoffs with wins over Cambridge, Bern, OESJ, and Voorheesville by a combined margin of 33-1. Throughout the entire season, these outstanding scholar athletes outscored their opponents by a margin of 161-16, which is better than a 10-1 ratio. Truly a job well done. At this time, as I welcome them, I would ask you if they would stand up as I mention each one of their names. First, Madeline Atwood, Bailey Beauregard, Sophia Bologna, Imana Bloomfield, Carly Courts, Emily Costello, Addison Galuski, Peyton Galuski, Zoe Grannon, Donella Jordan, Sarah Kelly, Cassidy McClement, Piper Morris, Bailey Noddle, Maya O'Brien, Alexandra Phelps, Samara Roberts, and Isabella Vecchio. Along with them today, because we know they're outstanding, they worked tremendously as a team, but they had a lot of good team members behind them, and that was their school, their administrators, their parents, all of their supporters. And again, I introduce to you their coach, Megan Reynolds, assistant coach, Courtney Tremblay, athletic director, Michael Robbins, assistant principal, Joel Richardson, and principal, Christopher Scanlon. This was their first championship. They made history, and I told them they made history today because they will be chronicled with this resolution for as long as the Senate enlists here, and hopefully our representative democratic democracy will last that long. I would ask you to welcome them, show them all the appreciation of this august body, and show our appreciation to them as outstanding student athletes. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Tedisco. To our guests, our champions, I welcome you on behalf of the Senate. We extend to you the privileges and courtesies of the House. Please rise and be recognized. The resolution was previously adopted on January 10th. Senator Gianaris.
Madam President, let's move on now to Resolution 509 by Senator Webb. Read that resolution's title and recognize Senator Ramos.
The Secretary will read.
Senate Resolution 509 by Senator Webb, memorializing Governor Kathy Hochul to proclaim March 8, 2023 as International Women's Day in the state of New York.
Senator Ramos on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President, and happy International Women's Day to you and to all of our women senators. Not so long ago in history, this chamber was filled with humans only, male, pale, and stale. And I think we've spiced it up a bit. You know, this is an important day to recognize in the state of New York. You know, on March 8th, 1857, garment workers marched in downtown Manhattan in protest of unfair working conditions. And this is actually why we recognize women and our struggles and our challenges and everything we've overcome to be where we are today on this special day. That day, those workers were organizing for a shorter workday and for decent wages. And actually, just this past Monday, crossing the Manhattan Bridge, led by immigrant women, hundreds of workers marched for a safety net that grants them dignity and respect and parity with those who do qualify for unemployment insurance. And then just yesterday, the halls of our New York State Capitol were filled with home care workers, hospitality workers and restaurant workers, human service workers, domestic workers, and minimum wage workers. Because of all working women in New York State, a whopping third are minimum wage earners here in our communities. But we stood together on the $1 Million Staircase to demand dignified wages and, of course, continue our plight for childcare, for affordable housing, for more MWBE contracts, and so much more that we can do to put money in women's pockets. The reason we're fighting, of course, is because women in New York are more likely to live in poverty than men. Women of color, single mothers, women who work part-time in underpaid jobs are at an even higher risk of poverty, especially as the cost of living rises. You know, we are about to see the final budget, hopefully in a few weeks, by the first elected woman governor of the state of New York. And it is my hope that in that budget, in that final budget, we end the exacerbation and of the feminization of poverty that has unfortunately plagued our state and our country for so long. So I want to thank you, Madam President, for this opportunity, and I want to wish all of my colleagues a happy International Women's Day yesterday, today, and every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ramos. The question is on the resolution. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The resolution is adopted. Senator Gianaris.
At the request of the sponsors, the resolutions we took up today are open for co-sponsorship.
The resolutions are open for co-sponsorship. Should you choose not to be a co-sponsor of the resolutions, please notify the desk. Senator Gianaris.
There's a privileged resolution at the desk, Madam President. Please take that up, read its title, and let's take a vote on it.
Read.
Senate Resolution 540 by Senator Stuart Cousins, concurrent resolution of the Senate and Assembly proposing to implement, pursuant to and in compliance with the provision of Article 7 of the Public Officers Law, a system of video conferencing to conduct meetings.
Naris.
Madam President, I think what I understand is that there's questioning on the resolution, which we're happy to take up now.
Senator Palumbo, why do you rise?
Thank you, Madam President. Would the sponsor yield for a few questions on this resolution, please?
Yield?
Yes, I do.
The senator yields.
Thank you, Senator. How are you? And good morning. It's still barely morning. How are you? I have a few questions on this joint resolution, if I may, and I see that it indicates that it was in compliance with Public Officers Law, that there was a hearing on March 1st, 2023 to receive public comment. My question is, on that particular hearing, I believe the hearing that we're referring to, just so I'm clear, was the investigations hearing that was about 10 minutes long. In fact, I'm a member of the investigations committee, and I was heading to the hearing. There was one group, there were no questions asked, and they just indicated a few things, and that was that. Is that the hearing that we're referring to?
I don't know if what your description is explaining, but I know there was a hearing on March 1st in hearing room A. If that's the one you're talking about, then yes.
Okay, will the sponsor continue to yield, please?
Yield?
Yes.
Yes, senator yields.
And assuming that complied with Public Officers Law, because I have the section here, it's Public Officers Law, Section 103A, and there is a number of criteria that needs to be met, that a public body may, in its discretion, use video conferencing to conduct its meetings pursuant to the requirements of this article. And in fact, it says in subsection 2 that provided that a minimum number of members are present to fulfill the public body's quorum requirement in the same physical location or locations where the public can attend, and the following criteria are met. And that specific language is in the resolution. So regarding the criteria, it also indicates at section 2B that the public body has established written procedures governing member and public attendance consistent with this section, and such written procedures shall be conspicuously posted on the public website of the public body. Can you tell me where the specific location of these written procedures are located as we sit here today?
Well, we first have to adopt the resolution through both houses for this procedure to be authorized, and at that time, the language of this resolution, actually the language of the resolution is already available publicly, but it will have been passed through both houses once that happens.
The sponsor continue to yield, please.
You continue to yield?
Yes.
The senator yields.
Well, thank you, Senator. But the language here, the public body has established past tense. So as we sit here today, is it, I guess, the position of the majority that they don't need to have previously established those written procedures, that they will be prepared and adopted at a future date?
What I am saying is that the language in the resolution that's before us, where it says resolved in 4 separate paragraphs, are the written procedures that will govern how video conferencing will occur in these houses. They're not in effect until they pass both houses by joint resolution, which is what we're doing now.
Thank you. Would you continue to yield, please?
You continue to yield?
Yes.
Yes, continue to yield.
Thank you, Senator. And so when we look at those paragraphs, let's look at the second resolved paragraph, that the legislators shall be permitted on a case-by-case basis. And I want to read through this section, and then I'm going to compare it to the Public Officers Law, because, again, clearly that section was referenced because it's identical language to an extent. And then there are some other questions I'm going to have in that regard. But they're permitted on a case-by-case basis if unable to be physically present at any such meeting due to extraordinary circumstances or any other significant or unexpected factor or event which precludes the member's physical attendance at such meeting, and with the approval of the appropriate leader pursuant to the procedure established by each House to participate in meetings through the use of video conferencing. And I reference that as well in the Public Officers Law, Section C, that says, be physically present at any such meeting location due to extraordinary circumstances as set forth in the resolution and written procedures adopted pursuant to paragraphs A and B of this subdivision. This is referring to that Public Officers Law section. But it also says it includes, including disability, illness, caregiving responsibilities, or any other significant or unexpected factor or event which precludes the member's physical attendance at such meeting. Well, I appreciate you obliging me to get through all of that. But that's identical language, but we do not have in the resolution disability, illness, caregiving responsibilities specifically. So can you tell me why that was not included in this resolution? Because it seems quite vague to me.
First of all, the statute is also relevant here, and that language is there, but that is a non-exclusive list of possible extraordinary circumstances that the statute envisions. So we didn't think it was necessary to list the non-exclusive list of examples that's in the statute that are intended to give context to what the words mean.
Senator Gianaris, continue to lead. Yield, please.
Do you continue to yield?
Yes.
Senator Gianaris yields.
So would illness be included? I guess it's a non-exclusive list, but it doesn't specifically have some of them that are kind of easy to recognize. Illness, caregiving responsibilities. Would those be included when it comes to an excuse that would allow someone to video conference?
Yes.
Would you continue to yield, please?
Continue to yield?
Yes.
Senator yields.
And of course, those questions would also apply to disability and caregiving responsibilities?
Yeah, I think you read the entire list, and I said yes.
Thank you. Would you continue to yield, please?
Yes.
Senator yields.
And I appreciate that, Senator, because, as I said, it seems quite vague to me where we have some of these, and some of this language in here, but not all of it. The approval of the appropriate leader pursuant to the procedures established by each house. That's not enumerated in here, and we don't have any other written procedures or policies to refer to. So who is the appropriate leader in the Senate?
The temporary president, majority leader.
And in the Assembly, who is the appropriate leader under the joint resolution rules?
The Assembly.
And isn't there also, would you continue to yield? I'm sorry.
Yes.
We were on a
Senator
roll
Yield.
there for a second. I forgot the procedure on occasion. Is there any involvement of the minority leader in the Assembly with respect to the minority members down the hall?
Down the hall or
In the Assembly?
in the Assembly? Well, the Assembly will determine its own procedures in terms of how the Speaker intends to receive and decide on those requests. I imagine here in the Senate it will work the same way excusals currently work or committee memberships currently work, which is the minority leader will communicate to the majority leader a request, and she will decide accordingly.
Would you continue to yield, please?
Do you continue to yield?
Yes.
Senator yields.
So would the final say-so, whether it's a valid excuse or not, be on the majority leader in the Senate, not the minority leader?
Like everything else we do here.
Would you continue to yield, please?
Do you continue to yield?
Yes.
Senator yields.
And assuming that there are rules that are going to be adopted in the Assembly, will these Senate rules mirror exactly the rules in the Assembly when it comes to who has the final say with respect to established criteria for an excuse to video conference?
I don't know how the Assembly is going to determine its own procedures. We have responsibility for the Senate over here.
Would you continue to yield, please?
Do you continue to yield?
Yes.
Senator yields.
Thank you. Well, Senator, our understanding was that the excuse, and I use it as an excuse to be excused, of course, from being physically present is what I'm referring to, that the excuse would be controlled by each appropriate leader in their conference, that absent specific criteria, I believe that might have some fluid, for lack of a better phrase, interpretations. So will we have any specific enumerated list, and I'd prefer an exhaustive list, but a specific list so that we can know whether or not we fit within the parameters of an appropriate excuse?
First of all, let me correct something you misstated. The excusals are the responsibility of the majority leader. I believe there's deference to the minority leader when members of his conference are seeking an excusal, but as a matter of who has authority to grant that excusal is the majority leader. So we're not changing that procedure as it relates to the opportunity to participate remotely.
Would you continue to yield, please?
Do you continue to yield?
Yes.
Senator yields.
Thank you, Senator. Now, assuming someone fits the criteria and gets the approval from the majority leader only, will they be able to vote, as we did during the COVID procedures, vote, not debate, but vote by remote sheet, by vote sheet?
I think the exact procedures and the details of it will be determined once this is authorized, but I would imagine something to that effect. I know that the statute also requires the ability to see the person who's video conferencing in, and so we'd have to make sure that we abide by those requirements.
Follow-up, if you would continue to yield.
You continue to yield?
Yes.
Senator yields.
Thank you, Senator. So, in light of just what I'm gleaning from our discussion is that there will be more specific procedures eventually adopted so that it can be a little bit more clear for the body and for the public?
The words in this resolution are what will govern this procedure. Whether there's something to follow that will be specifically written or just communicated through the leadership, I don't know at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Senator Gianaris. On the resolution, please.
Senator Palumbo on the resolution.
Well, thank you, Madam President. And I do appreciate, I guess, the spirit of this. I think that there are some significant inconsistencies between this resolution and the public officers law, because this is, I believe it's intentionally quite vague, because clearly the statute was referenced, and when you compare it word for word, there are some really important aspects of the public officers law that are not included. And quite frankly, I don't believe this meets the criteria as required by law. We had a public hearing, if you want to call it that. That was 10 minutes. As I said, I was on my way to the hearing and I found out it was over. There were no questions asked. There was one group that spoke. And in fact, the one group said, the ones that did speak said, it's about good government. We need to have this resolution aged like a bill for 3 days. We got it yesterday. So they haven't even complied with the one group of witnesses that testified at the 10-minute public hearing. And more importantly, we don't have written procedures, because this is a very broad stroke, this resolution. And again, I get it, but I just think that the arbitrary nature of the whims of whether or not we fit into certain criteria, is it a car accident and someone's in a hospital? Or is it that, well, I had an emergency vacation to Hawaii? I don't know. And that's the concern, that this is left to the arbitrary whims of a majority leader in the Senate, and apparently only the Speaker in the Assembly, which is not the information that I got, that it actually was, we're all adults, that the majority leader would just say, we're excusing so-and-so. Or the minority leader can say, we're excusing a member of our conference. So I'm really concerned with the language here. Unfortunately, I don't believe this even complies with the public officers law. So, Madam President, I will be voting no on this resolution, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Senator Borrello on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. Like my colleague, Senator Palumbo, I think the spirit of this is to allow for an emergency. But this bill is just poorly written and vague. And I agree, I think it was done intentionally. You know, we've unfortunately become very comfortable with insulating ourselves from the people we represent. And there's probably no greater evidence than that in a brief, 10-minute, hurried hearing where really no one was invited to actually speak on what they feel good government looks like in this situation. You know, we've all experienced situations where we felt that the rules favored one person over the other, and that was not fair. And we all want to be fair. This is licensed to not be fair. And that's really the problem with this bill. This is licensed for someone to say, I deem this an emergency, and I deem this not an emergency. And there are no guardrails, there are no standards, and there's certainly no public scrutiny of what is deemed an emergency. That's the fundamental problem with this. I've spoken in the past about how we've further separated ourselves from the people that we are supposed to represent, the people who vote for us to send us here, the people who pay taxes to pay the salaries that allow us to do this job. And yet we continue to do things to say that we'll take care of this, we're smarter than you, you really don't need to have a say in this, this is up to us. That's the very definition of an elitist attitude. This bill takes us further down that road to say that it really doesn't matter what the people think. The great unwashed that we represent. It's a horrible attitude. It's a horrible way to govern, and it's certainly not an open, transparent government. So I'll be voting no. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Gianaris on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. My colleague, Senator Borrello, has good taste in science fiction, but really bad opinions about resolutions and legislation. Give me a break. We have operated under rules much more lenient than these for over 2 years in the midst of COVID. Now, I hope Senator Palumbo and Senator Borrello never have to avail themselves of the opportunity to participate remotely because they're ill. But this is something for the protection of everyone in this chamber and to afford people the opportunity to participate in our democratic process when they can't be here. It still requires a physical quorum of members to be present. And you know, it's funny because these crocodile tears, which by the way would not qualify as an illness, so don't try and get out of it for that reason, but they would be completely on the other side of this if, God forbid, someone had COVID and couldn't be here and were not allowed to participate. And then you'd be screaming, why don't we have a process to let people vote? Because you've been denying the opportunity to vote. So I know you got to object to everything we do here because like you're in the minority, but this is something that is intended to protect your rights as well as our members' rights to represent your constituents and be here and participate and vote when you physically cannot be here for extraordinary reasons, not because you want to sit home with your feet on the couch and watch television. That would not count. I vote aye. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Helming on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to explain my vote on this resolution. In reading through it, you've heard me say this before on this floor, that the devil's in the detail. So when I read through it, I really become concerned. For instance, as Senator Palumbo pointed out, this reso states that procedures will be established by each house. But we don't have any idea what those procedures are. There's nothing before us. That's one of the reasons why I will be voting no. Also, it talks about extraordinary circumstances or any other significant or unexpected factor or event. Again, there are no parameters there to give me any indication of what would be considered. Another reason why I'll be voting no. It also talks about the approval of the appropriate leader, and to me, that's clear as mud. The leader that this conference voted for is the minority leader, Rob Ort. So I would assume he would be giving the approvals, but it's not clear in this resolution. And then finally, we just received this resolution yesterday, and we do a lot of talking about accountability, transparency, good government. But in my opinion, rushing this through this way, not giving the public at least 72 hours to look at this and to comment on it is not good government, and it's not what we need to do to begin to restore trust and faith in our state government. For those reasons and many more, I will be voting no on this resolution.
The question is on... Senator Rhodes on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. The problem is, to Senator Gianaris' point, the problem is that the resolution doesn't say in case of illness. I think everyone in this chamber would be in agreement that if there's an illness, providing a mechanism for people to continue to be able to participate sounds like a good idea. The problem is that the resolution really doesn't establish any criteria. And in the limited time that I've been, had the honor of being in this chamber, unfortunately, it's not the first time where I would be concerned about the absence of detail when we're establishing the rules.
Rhodes yield for a question?
Yes? Is that yes?
I'm speaking on the resolution.
Yes.
And I'm asking you to yield for a question.
Sure.
Thank you.
Senator Yields.
Can you read the first resolved paragraph in the resolution? Do you see where it says, in compliance with the provisions of Article 7 of the Public Officers Law? Okay, would Senator Rhodes continue to yield?
Yes.
So Section 7 of the Public Office, or whatever the appropriate section is that's referenced, Article 7 of the Public Officers Law, lists the things that Senator Rhodes is asking about. we reference that we are complying with Article 7 of the Public Office Law, which says disability, illness, and caregiving responsibilities. So by reference, we exactly list the things that he is asking about.
With respect to the paragraph that goes below that, where it indicates resolved that legislators shall be permitted on a case-by-case basis, if unable to be physically present at any such meeting due to extraordinary circumstances or other significant or unexpected factor or event which precludes the member's physical attendance at such meeting, and with the approval of the appropriate leader pursuant to the procedures established by each House to participate in the meetings through the use of video conferencing, and then it goes to speak to the next resolve section. The issue that I have is without there being clearly established parameters as to what is and isn't going to be considered a valid excuse, we now leave it up to one individual to determine whether my illness, whether my excuse, whether my problem that prevents my attendance is going to be considered worthy, whereas somebody else may be considered differently. And that's whether this power was vested in a Democrat or Republican, I would have the same exact concern with the lack of parameters. It leaves it open to interpretation. And having been here in the short period of time that I've been here, my concern is that I've already seen, I mean, look at the LaSalle nomination, for example. I've already seen where the rules can be manipulated, whether it's adding additional people to the Judiciary Committee, whether it's permitting people to be able to participate remotely and vote remotely when they may or may not be here, because we need the vote. And so my concern is, if it's a situation where it's a close vote and I'm not able to be here, my reason for not being here may be considered differently if my vote's not going to make a difference than if it did make a difference. And that's my concern. Without those clear parameters and without being able to establish under what circumstances an excuse will be considered and not considered, you create the opportunity for the process to be abused. And so that's why I'll be voting no, Madam President.
The question is on the resolution. The Secretary will call the roll.
Addabbo, Janoris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart-Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
In relation to Resolution 540, those senators voting in the negative are Senators Ashby, Perrello, Cancelari, Fitzpatrick, Gallivan, Griffith, Helmy, Lanza Martins, Matera, Murray, Oberek, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rollison, Steck, Tedisco, Walzik, and Weber. Ayes 41, nays 20.
The resolution is adopted. Senator Gianaris.
By consent, we're going to go back to motions and resolutions. I understand Senator, hope I could pronounce this correctly, Cantanaro Fitzpatrick wanted to speak on the Women's Day resolution and didn't have the opportunity, so we could please recognize her for her comments.
Senator Cantanari Fitzpatrick on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Senator Gianaris. I just wanted to say that I fully support this resolution. I thank the sponsor for bringing this to the floor. As I stated yesterday, the women in our lives help us achieve the goals that we have and allows us to be examples for our future generations. As I stated yesterday, my grandmother came to this country not speaking English and with minimal education, and I applaud the women like her that have brought us all to the place that we are today. I also, as the mom of 3 girls, want to continue to support them, whether they want to be in sports, whether they want to be in fields that are traditionally held by men. I have a daughter who's a major in chemical engineering, and I'm so proud of her because there are so few women in that field. So I thank this, the Senate for this resolution, and I continue to support women in all of their endeavors as we try to continue our success and applaud the women who got us to this point. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Cantaneri Fitzpatrick. Now we will go back. Senator Gianaris.
Thank you. And of course, I did manage to mispronounce Senator Cantaneri Fitzpatrick's name, so my apologies for that. Can we now take up the reading of the calendar?
The Secretary will read.
Calendar number 258, Senate Print 2175 by Senator Kennedy, enacting the Workers' Compensation Law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act take effect on the 1st of January.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ortsula Cousins White.
Senator Kennedy to explain his vote.
Madam President, on the bill, I rise today to speak on this legislation that I'm so proud to support and sponsor, a bill that's personal for tens of thousands of women and families across New York. Through this bill, the birth of a stillborn child will be added as a qualifying condition for paid family leave here in New York State. It will allow individuals who lose a child to take time to grieve, process their loss, and begin the healing process. We all know that healing process truly never ends. 1 in 4 pregnancies end in loss, and of that, 1 in every 160 births are stillborn. There are 3,000 stillborn babies here in New York State alone every single year. And as I mentioned, this is personal. For all of those families, including many in this room here today, it's personal for me. If my colleagues would so indulge me, I'm going to share a couple of stories. My own personal story, my wife. Back in 2007, October 19th, 2007, my wife and I gave birth to a little baby girl, Bridget Nicole Kennedy. She was with us for 4 minutes. She had a condition where she retained fluid and wasn't able to breathe. So her life was very quick in this world. We had the beautiful moment to hold her in this life, to baptize her and to send her on to the Lord. And that truly was a life-changing moment that I think about every day. Driving force in my life, as our families are driving forces oftentimes in our lives. My baby girl was a driving force in my life. The day before my birthday, woke up the next morning in the hospital with a beautiful rainbow. And we knew it was a sign from above that our baby girl was okay. Every time we see a rainbow, we think of my baby girl, Bridget Nicole. You know, we were one of the lucky ones, not just to have held our baby girl, Bridget, but to have spent those 4 minutes with her in this life. Not just as a personal moment for us, but also the way the law reflects that moment. In those 4 minutes, we qualified for insurance. My wife qualified for disability. We qualified for a certificate of birth to recognize that Bridget Nicole existed, came into this life, and had those moments with us. And we qualified for a certificate of death, among other things. You know, back in 2012, this body and the Assembly signed into law by the governor the certificate of birth resulting in stillbirth. Up until that moment, if a stillborn child was brought into this life, the state by law said that baby never existed. In 2012, we took the steps to change that, and we succeeded because of the powerful advocates, families that had experienced that terrible loss of a child driving that message forward. My sister Peggy wasn't so lucky, my oldest sister. A first grandson back in 2004 coming into our lives. This is before that certificate of birth resulting in stillbirth was passed. Over 30 weeks, about 34 weeks gestation, we were expecting this baby boy, kicking every day. One day, my sister woke up, and that baby boy is no longer kicking. She had a stillbirth, named that baby boy, my nephew, John Christian Jude Mulderick. And that was life-changing in her life and all of our family lives. You know, I know it changed the course and trajectory of her family. I also know that we're hardly alone. Thankfully, my wife and I have been blessed with 3 beautiful children, Connor, Aaron, and Patrick, 17, 14, and 11. My sister Peggy, 3 beautiful little girls. The only baby boy in her life was the boy she lost still in 2004. But Molly, Megan, and Kate are making up each and every day for that loss with their beautiful lives. In the tens of thousands of families that are impacted by stillbirth each and every year here in New York feel that pain. We know how commonly this affects families across New York and across our nation, and yet we don't currently afford parents the same time off if they experience the loss of a stillborn child. Well, today, we're one step closer to making that a reality here in New York. I want to close by sharing some of the names of those who have stood beside us, sharing their own stories of trauma, of grief, and of loss, and channeled that trauma into advocacy to get this legislation passed for families that are grieving. Christine Scott, the mother of Jacob Wesley Scott, the founder of Wings of Love out in Western New York, part of the Western New York Perinatal Bereavement Network, the longtime executive director of that organization. Kelly Anderson, a great friend of ours, her and her husband Mike, the mother of Michael Anthony. Samantha Surface, the mother of Abigail. The organization Pushed for Empowered Pregnancy. Marjorie, the mother of Alexi. Cassidy, the mother of Olivia. Ashley, the mother of CJ. Christian, the father of Valentina. Samantha, the mother of Archer. Nora, the mother of Bryce. Today is for them and all of those individuals and families, their beautiful babies, and so many other thousands of New Yorkers who they fight for each and every day. We're giving comfort to thousands of families in New York State, emotionally and financially, as they cope with tragedy and the most difficult moment of their lives. I thank my colleagues for supporting this legislation, all of those that helped to advance it, and I ask each and every one of you to support me in this legislation. With that, Mr. President, I vote aye.
Senator Kennedy to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Mayer to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Senator Kennedy, for bringing this legislation to the floor. And thank you to all my colleagues who I know understand how personal and important this issue is. You know, I think it was about 7 years ago that some mothers came to me who had experienced stillbirth, and they really felt ignored at every level in state policymaking, ignored by the lack of paid leave, ignored by the lack of research into stillbirth, ignored by the stigma of talking about it and advocating at a policy level to understand why this happens, not only to them, but because they cared about why it happened to anyone and how prevalent stillbirth was and remains. And the fact is our state has much more to do. And any parent who has experienced the loss of a child, as I have and my husband has, understands that there is an obligation to take these stories out of the shadows and into the halls of chambers like this, to make the policy changes that these parents deserve, and to insist that there is more to be done. The research, the medical attention, and the public voice for these families must be heard. So I'm so pleased that this bill is being brought to the floor. I really thank Senator Kennedy for continuing to make clear that it's not just personal to those of us who experienced it personally. This is our obligation as elected officials to speak for them as well. And so today we take a step forward in that journey, and I'm proud to vote yes.
Senator Mayer to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Scarcella-Spanton to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Kennedy, for your work around this issue. This issue is very personal to me. The first bill I ever worked on as a staffer back in 2009 was with families looking to seek a certificate of birth resulting in stillbirth. I still speak to those families to this day. Allowing individuals who lose a child to take time to grieve and come to terms with life-altering loss is critical to the healing process. I'm thinking about all the families I worked with in the past, but especially Lori and Jeff Teeger from Staten Island and their son Daniel, who was a stillborn. Lori actually had to use her saved days after her loss of her son, and she lost time with her daughter, who was born shortly thereafter. This bill is critical to making sure that we give these families the support that they so deserve. In New York City alone, there are close to 900 stillbirths each year. This legislation to assist families that are dealing with the overwhelming circumstances of losing a child during pregnancy is a critical piece to helping support them, and I proudly vote aye. Thank you.
Senator Scarcella-Spanton to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator Brooke to explain her vote.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to just start by showing immense gratitude to my colleague, Senator Tim Kennedy, for sharing your story with us today, for bringing light to it, and for also turning that into purpose and really changing the lives of so many people who face that tragedy as well. I have, in the past few months, talked a lot about the maternal mortality crisis, and the word missing there is the maternal and infant mortality crisis, because there is a crisis from not just losing mothers' lives, but losing their infants as well. And an interesting thing, as we just heard from some of my colleagues, is you often don't hear about these stories because they're really hard to share. And it wasn't until I embarked on my own pregnancy that I heard stories from many people who had faced loss. But today, I want to use my next minute to honor little Remy. Little Remy passed away at 8 months in her mom's belly and was delivered at 8 months and could not survive. She was the daughter of my chosen sister. I have none by blood. And when it happened, there was so little I could do. There was so little I could do. She was in Colorado, I was in New York, and something like this is what we can do. As legislators, we can make it easier for people who face this kind of tragedy and loss. And I know, being this friend and chosen sister of her mom, that you never stop grieving. And so for that, I am so grateful, Senator Kennedy, that you brought attention to this issue, because now I can look at my dear friend and her family and tell them this is something that we can do to support them and make sure they have the time to heal and grieve. So thank you so much, Senator Kennedy, and thank you to our colleagues for bringing this forward. I very much vote aye. Thank you.
Senator Brooke to be recorded in the affirmative. Senator May to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I also want to thank the sponsor for this bill and for your beautiful words, and all my colleagues for what you've shared. And I want to say that I am very strongly in support of this, but this ought to be part of a wider package of support for people grieving deaths in their families. And I'm glad that we are allowing or supporting paid family leave for this particular kind of bereavement, but I think New York State needs to step up and be more supportive of the grieving process in general. And so I hope we can make this the first, and I gather the governor has vetoed in the past an effort to create that kind of leave for other kinds of loss. And I hope we can make this the start of really stepping up for everybody who is grieving the loss of a family member. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to thank Tim and Shelley for sharing your stories as well. Thank you. You know, when we passed paid family leave, this should have been part of that. And the fact that it wasn't is being corrected, hopefully, today. The importance of recognizing the impact on a family. Many of us here in the room have children. We've gone through that. We understand the impact to a community or to a family. We have loved ones, we have friends who have gone through the process and unfortunately have lost a child, whether in utero or shortly after birth, and the fact that we're able to stand together, frankly, unanimous today on something as important as the sanctity of life and the importance of that life to the family and the importance of that life in recognizing the impact on the family and allowing our laws to apply is something that's overdue. So I do want to take the opportunity to thank the sponsor for presenting this and allowing us all an opportunity to come together on something as important as this. So, Tim, thank you. Thank you, Madam President. I vote aye.
Senator Martin's to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 333, Senate Print 3349A by Senator Fernandez, an act to amend the mental hygiene law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect 1 year after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 336, Senate Print 2077 by Senator Adabo, an act to amend Chapter 473 of the laws 2010.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Senator Jackson to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in order to explain my vote on this particular matter. I have a bill that basically the income that's generated from video display units to go to education, and looking at this bill, it will conflict with the bill that I have pending. I hope that our bill will pass pretty soon, but just because of that, I'll be voting no.
Senator Jackson to be recorded in the negative. Announce the result.
In relation to calendar 336, those senators voting in the negative are Senators Brisport, Gonzalez, Jackson, May, and Salazar. Ayes 56, nays 5.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 359, Senate Print 2169 by Senator Liu, an act to amend the tax law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act will take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
In relation to calendar 359, voting in the negative, Senator Lanza. Ayes 60, nays 1.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 375, Senate Print 2907 by Senator Prasad, an act to amend the education law.
Read the last section.
Section 12, this act will take effect 18 months after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
In relation to calendar 375, voting in the negative, Senator Walzek. Ayes 60, nays 1.
Bill is passed.
Calendar number 396, Senate Print 2019 by Senator Adabo, an act to amend the tax law and the state finance law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the results.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 401, Senate Print 209 by Senator Claire, an act to amend the education law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Adabo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Senator Clear to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. This bill saves lives, in particular the lives of school children who may go into anaphylactic shock and need immediate professional intervention to avoid catastrophic results. While schools are currently required to have a medical professional on staff and to have the tools necessary to treat a child that goes into anaphylactic shock, it is best that all professionals in the school setting have the basic and proper information and training to administer an epinephrine auto-injector, often referred to as an EpiPen, in the event of an immediate emergency. This bill requires the proactive provision of training materials to teachers in schools and maintain epinephrine auto-injectors on site so all professionals in the school setting may learn how to use one in advance of the time coming when it may actually be needed. I thank my colleagues for supporting this bill last year and again encourage a unanimous aye vote.
Senator Clear to be recorded in the affirmative. Announce the result.
Aye 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 404, Senate Print 1448 by Senator Sanders, an act to amend the education law.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Announce the result.
Ayes 61.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 413, Senate Print 4342 by Senator Sepulveda, an act to amend the Surrogate Courts Procedure Act.
Read the last section.
Section 2, this act shall take effect on the 30th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Gianaris Kruger, Ort, Stewart Cousins, White.
Senator Borrello. Senator Borrello to explain his vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I understand the intent of this is to perhaps give those who have a small estate the ability to have some flexibility when it comes to, settling an estate after a death. However, I think we've all seen con artists, really, people that take advantage of those situations. We've all gotten those phone calls, letters saying, hey, the state has some of your money, and if you just pay us some money, we'll get that for you. Well, you can go to a simple website that the state operates and get that money yourself. You don't have to pay somebody to do it, but that is a cottage industry created, unfortunately, by, in some cases, bad legislation. This is a similar situation. I believe this will give, and I ask this question of counsel, someone completely unrelated the ability to make a phone call and say, for a fee, we will settle this small estate. And this will likely be folks who really can't afford to give up any money in the case of transfer of a small estate after a death. So while I understand the intent, I think that there are unintended consequences, so that's why I'm a no. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Borrello to be recorded in the negative. Senator Canzoneri Fitzpatrick to explain her vote.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm an attorney who's practiced in the trust and estates field exclusively for the past 25 years. I've dealt with this statute firsthand. During committee, I requested an amendment by the sponsor which was not yielded to. And one of the items that this bill amends is that a competent adult who's not a distributee, therefore not related to the decedent, can now act on behalf of the estate. There is no bond in place to ensure that the fiduciary acts appropriately for the distributees. And we already have in place in every county the public administrator, who's a state agency willing to step in and act on behalf of family members when there isn't anybody appropriate that can act and qualify under the law as a fiduciary. I think it's a slippery slope when we put in unrelated people to represent and handle money. In September of 2021, New York State law was amended to change our power of attorney law to advise agents that they are acting in the best interests of the principal, and if they don't, they will be liable, because this area of law is rampant with people that take advantage and don't do the right thing and act true to their fiduciary responsibilities. So I'm disappointed that the sponsor would not amend this statute, because I too understand that he's trying to make it easier for people who don't have family, but I don't think that this is appropriate. So for that reason, I'm voting nay. Thank you.
Senator Canzoneri Fitzpatrick should be recorded in the negative. Announce results.
In relation to calendar 413, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Borrello, Canzoneri Fitzpatrick, Helming, Lanza, Martins, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Rollison, Steck, Tedisco, Walczyk, and Weber. Ayes 44, nays 17.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 418, Senate Print 2924 by Senator Claire, an act to establish a Marshall Plan for Moms Interagency Task Force.
Read the last section.
Section 6, this act shall take effect immediately.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Janoris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Result.
In relation to calendar 418, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Borrello, Casanova, Fitzpatrick, Gallivan, Helmy, Lanza, Matera, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Palumbo, Rhodes, Steck, Tedisco, and Weber. Ayes 46, nays 15.
Bill is passed.
Thank you. Calendar number 419, Senate Print 4878 by Senator Mayer, an act to amend the labor law.
Read the last section.
Section 3, this act take effect on the 60th day after it shall become a law.
Call the roll.
Addabbo, Janoris, Kruger, Ort, Stewart, Cousins, White.
Result.
In relation to calendar 419, those senators voted in the negative are Senators Borrello, Gallivan, Murray, Oberacker, O'Mara, Ort, Steck, Tedisco, and Walzett. Ayes 52, nays 9.
The bill is passed.
Calendar number 423, Senate Print 314 by Senator Salazar, an act directing the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority to establish a Ride Clean rebate program.
The bill is jointly laid aside for the day. Senator Gianaris, that completes the reading of today's calendar.
Is there any further business at the desk?
There is no further business at the desk.
I was going to remind my colleagues in the majority that we are going into conference, but it seems like they're already there. So with that, I move to adjourn until Monday, March 13th at 3 p.m., with the intervening days being legislative days.
On motion, the Senate stands adjourned until Monday, March 13th at 3 p.m., with the intervening days being legislative days.